And this is part of Michael Schmidt's reporting. The White House claims that Michael Flynn acted alone, but the New York Times reports that emails show Flynn was in close touch with other senior members of the Trump transition before and after he spoke with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak about U.S. sanctions. That includes a December 29th email sent from transition advisor KT McFarland, where she voiced concerns that Obama administration sanctions could make it harder for Trump to ease tensions with Russia, adding, quote, if there is a tit-for-tat escalation, Trump will have difficulty improving relations with Russia, which has just thrown USA election to him. It is unclear if McFarland was saying she believes the election was thrown, although it kind of looks like that. According to the Times, Thomas Bossert, another transition official, forwarded McFarland's email exchange to 6 other Trump advisors, including Michael Flynn, Reince Priebus, and Steve Bannon. White House attorney Ty Cobb told NBC News it would have been political malpractice not to discuss sanctions internally, going on to say the presidential transition guide specifically encourages contact with and outreach to foreign dignitaries. Cobb defended McFarland's email, telling NBC that she was relatively new to the Trump team and at this point was simply referring to Democratic arguments. Michael Schmidt, is that what it looks like when you look at the details surrounding the reporting?
It's not entirely clear what she was referring to. She's trying to summarize in the email what she thinks the Obama administration is trying to do in terms of moving forward with the sanctions. But at the same time, she has this sentence that sort of doesn't really clearly say whether this is what she believes or what Obama is trying to do. Nevertheless, whatever it is, it shows how closely the transition was monitoring the issue of sanctions and how much they were focused on Flynn's upcoming call with Kislyak. They were afraid that this would start this cycle where Russia would retaliate and it would stop whatever momentum the incoming Trump transition team was going to have with Russia to build a new relationship. They thought that Russia could unlock all of these problems that they knew that they were going to have with Syria, with North Korea, and such. So they were very concentrated on stopping Russia from doing anything more in response to Obama.
You know, Nick, the argument now that Trump apologists will make after it's obvious that his national security advisor lied to the FBI was, well, it wasn't a big deal. This is what you're supposed to do. We should have talked to Kislyak and we should have talked to the Russians at this point. But if it wasn't a big deal, if this is what they were supposed to do, if this is what transition manuals say you're supposed to do, why did they lie about it? Why did every single one of them lie about their contacts with Russia? Why did they not put them on all their disclosure forms? Why did Flynn lie to the FBI? You know, why did Jeff Sessions lie repeatedly about contacts with Russians? Why? If it's not a big deal.
It's the big question at the heart of this investigation. And why so many contacts with so many different people who are directly or slightly connected to Kremlin interests over the course of many months. A meeting at the Seychelles, a meeting at the NRA conference, a meeting at Trump Tower. There are so many layers to this, right? It's so thick with discussion. And I can't quite understand, and maybe David can tell us more about this, it seems like an awful lot of focus on one country and one set of issues. Yes, it's a big, important country with a lot of problems, Russia, but they were extraordinarily focused on this question of sanctions and everything else flowing from it. And one question you wonder is, are they worried about, Russia imposing sanctions back or doing something else that might impact their own interests here in the U.S.?
Donald Trump's own interests. Well, exactly, David. Has anybody come forward and said, well, because it would be the perfect defense. Well, of course we talked to the Russians, but look at all these times I talked to the ambassador to Luxembourg or Argentina. You just don't find it. And of course, I'm being facetious there, but you don't find these contacts with China, who geopolitically is easily the most important country on the planet other than us.
To tell this story as I understand it, there were some early contacts in the transition with China, with Japan. certainly with Saudi Arabia and the UAE, which helped set up what were really the central accounts for the Trump administration foreign policy. The mystery is the one that Nick is pointing to. You can make a defense. The day I first wrote about the Flynn-Kislyak phone calls on January 12, I noted that this may be something that can be easily justified as being in America's interest. Why didn't they just say that? Why the elaborate efforts to conceal this? What is it that they were worried was at the bottom of the series of contacts with Russia?
Well, and David, putting it in context, David, yes, they reached out to the UAE, they reached out to Saudi Arabia, they reached out to a lot of different countries during the transition. But putting this in proper context, you had Papadopoulos in March saying, hey, I'm going to help meet up, we're going to set up a meeting between Putin and Trump. You, of course, had the other contacts moving forward, Carter Page. You had, of course, the National Security Advisor getting paid by Russia to sit next to Vladimir Putin at an RT event, something that he didn't disclose, something that he didn't disclose. You had all the Jared Kushner meetings that he didn't disclose with Russians. You had the Jeff Sessions meetings that he didn't disclose with the Russians. And you've got that bizarre meeting at Don Jr.'s office with the campaign manager and the son-in-law and everybody else sitting. Again, that's the pretext to this FBI lie.
And most of the meetings that you described, importantly, involved discussion of material that Russia might make available to the Trump campaign that would be damaging to its adversary, Hillary Clinton. I think that's the consistent theme in the early contacts, April, May, June, on through to the release of the WikiLeaks material. So I think that is going to get more and more focus as we go forward. And as you say, that clearly distinguishes the Russia contacts from contacts with China or any other country they might have had.
Or even the way he talked about Russia right on this show was just out of the bounds of normality on any level.
And that was remember
we were awestruck.
Very early on.
A lot of timelines you start in, let's say, March, but in December of 2015, several months before any Republican went to vote, Donald Trump came on this show and was talking about what a great guy Putin was, what a strong leader he was. He said, but he assassinates political opponents. He kills journalists. And then Donald Trump felt like he had to defend Vladimir Putin and said, well, we kill a lot of people too. We're not perfect, and went on, and it was.
Yet he insults mayors and governors.
That was December of 2015, before 2.5 months before the Iowa caucuses.
The first article I picked up on watching this was from August of 2015. It was, "Is Trump the man to mend fences with Russia?" That came out in Sputnik News. And since then, if you look, it was a full court press, diplomatically.
Wait, did you say in August of 2015?
August of 2015.
2 months after he gets into the race.
Wow. This is in the Russian state-sponsored media. They're talking about what would this be like? What would it be? What might we get from this? And it's diplomatically, Kislyak. Information online and in person. We will provide you with information, and online and social media, we're going to help you all the way through. Militarily, you got Flynn meeting, RT. Flynn shows up now and he wants to deal with Kislyak. Economically, you've got bankers showing up, touching points with Kushner. So you're looking at a full spectrum influence operation for over a year.
So, Mika, putting this in context, maybe that, if you look at everything that happened leading up to Flynn's meeting with the FBI, maybe there's something in there that made Flynn tell himself, I have to lie to the FBI to cover something up.
We're going to continue to methodically break this down. Still ahead on Morning Joe, inside the nerve center of Bob Mueller's investigation. The Washington Post Robert Costa has new details on what FBI agents and prosecutors are asking about, and the name Jared Kushner comes up a lot. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.